Hey everyone, it's another week of Find Your Film. This is a weird week because this is probably the weirdest week we're going to be covering because of the selections, the 3 featured movies we are covering this week. One of them is called Benny Loves You. Was that correct, Bruce Purkey? Bruce Loves You, was that correct? Did I do it right?
Yes.
Benny Loves You. Benny Loves You. The Holmes Truth. How did Bruce do it? Okay, let me try it one more time. Benny Loves You. Bruce, your turn. Benny Loves You. Eric Holmes, who did it better?
It's kind of, I kind of like yours, Greg. Not gonna lie.
Thank
It sounds like you've been practicing that your whole life.
Benny Loves You. Thank you, Eric
this
Holmes.
This is not to disparage Bruce, but
take that, Bruce.
You get a bit of the edge there.
Oh, you Shutter fanatic, Bruce Purkey. I just got you on that. And Eric Holmes, who is your compadre. Oh, look at that. He's taking out that flamingo or whatever that. Wait, Eric Holmes, you know what? I'm sorry. I left you out. You got to do it too. You're Three Amigos. You got to say it.
Benny loves you. Benny loves you.
I think Eric Holmes does it the best. What do you think, Bruce? Do you think Eric Holmes takes it?
We knew he'd win. Come on.
He does all those weird voices. He's very good, Eric Holmes, as Benny Loves You. That's one of the movies that we're covering. The other one is a movie called, I keep calling it Underdogs, but it's called Undergods. So that's another interesting movie. And finally, maybe I'm just going to say, rounding out the rear, bringing out the rear, Bruce Purkey. What is that final?
You do whatever to the rear you want to do, Greg. It's your choice.
Okay.
You want to round out the rear? I'm not going to judge you.
Eric Holmes, do you like your movies fried or healthy and steamed? How do you like your movies, Eric? What's our third movie this week?
Wow. Tell the truth, I like anything fried.
Same here. My 50 waistline gut says FriedBarry is on the menu tonight. So FriedBarry, Undergods, and Benny Loves You. I really wanted to say Benny Loves You again. In fact, this entire podcast, listeners, stop listening now because we're actually not going to be reviewing anything. We're just going to be saying Benny Loves You 500 times over the span of 40 minutes. So anyways, Eric Holmes, I said this might be our weirdest week. Do you agree or do you take exception? Do you think that that's not a good assessment regarding what we have to cover?
As far as the movies we saw?
Yes.
Or just the I hate to use the word, but the content that spills from our mouths.
Yeah, a little bit of both, maybe.
in both instances, yes.
In both instances, yes. Bruce, but by the way, before I get to you, Bruce, we also have a Sidney Lumet episode that we actually we recorded earlier in the week. Because look, Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey, they're both good friends. They have not called a mediator or some kind of therapist. Thank you guys for not doing this, because Eric Holmes, if you see the videos, currently laughing because he knows I'm going to admit the reason why I haven't put out that wonderful Sidney Lumet episode we did on Night Falls on Manhattan in the pawnbrokers, because I've been addicted to Coinbase and crypto. I've been a cryptomaniac the last several weeks. Eric Holmes, I'm sorry. I get a couple. Yes.
As long as we're teasing that, I believe this is our first spoiler one we've done for a director spotlight as well.
Yes.
Is it not? Because we did the Sidney Lumet episode, and then we have a special spoiler to go along with it.
Very good.
Which was really fun to record.
It was.
Yeah.
It was value added for me. I know that much.
The reason why Bruce Purkey says value added, I'm not going to really divulge too much, but Bruce Purkey had a couple of thoughts on the second movie, Night Falls on Manhattan. Over the discussion of the spoilers, his thoughts may have diverged or maybe appreciated or gone different ways. So that's interesting. And we also did The Pawnbroker. So Bruce Purkey this week, for our people watching on YouTube, he's called Brucey Loves You. You know what that's in reference to. And The Holmes Truth. I think this time, Eric Holmes, for our Find Your Film listeners, is that one of your recommendations this week? I don't even know what that movie is.
Yes. It's
okay.
Well, I'll anti-tease. It's not actually called The Holmes Truth. I added the little pun in there.
Okay, a little pun. And then also rounding out the rear or bringing out the rear is Bruce Purkey's weekly What's in the Box segment. He has a very interesting movie. It's called Tsotsi. And who was the wonderful person who put that movie in the box for you to review? Who's the person?
Nathan Day.
Author Nathan Day. You know what, by the way, I believe I believe Nathan Day is an author on my Facebook feed. He has all these really interesting pulp fiction noir type of covers on his books. I definitely have to read some of his work. So that's Nathan Day's choice of Tsotsi, directed by Gavin Hood. I'm actually going to submarine Bruce Purkey's final review of Tsotsi at the end of the episode. That's not a teaser, that's a declaration, because instead of doing that, I'm just going to talk all over him and just talk about my love for X-Men Origins Wolverine, also directed by Gavin Hood. And there's nothing you or Eric Holmes can do about that. That is for the last several weeks of you guys slandering my buddy Zack Snyder on on that wonderful Snyder Cut movie, which, by the way, I still haven't seen. By the way, Eric, Bruce, have you ever seen? Are you gonna get to this? Did you get to the Snyder Cut? You did. Didn't you? No, not yet.
No,
not okay. Not yet. When
I have no plans. I have no plans of ever getting to it.
You would like it, Bruce. There's like so much character development in that movie that it's right up your alley.
Oh, okay. Appreciate the dry wit, Eric Holmes. Very well done. Very well played, sir. Very well done. I'm gonna throw it out to you, Bruce Purkey, first, because I've been blabbing. What movie do you want us to talk about? And why don't you lead into just a little intro to whatever movie? Pick one of those 3 movies and let's go.
Okay, let's start with Benny Loves You. How do you say it again?
Benny loves you.
Benny loves you. Benny loves you.
Okay.
Out in theaters May 7th, on demand May 11th, and on Blu-ray June 8th. That's all I'm gonna say regarding my excitement for this.
So it's directed by Carl Holtz, starring Carl Holtz,
and written by Carl Holtz.
By Carl Holtz.
Written, directed, and starring.
Yes. This is a pretty easy movie to describe it, but we're going to get into why we do or don't like it, based mostly on how it's presented. Basic concept is this: if you discard or forget your beloved toy, it may become a murderous demon toy, I guess is what you want to say. So in this one, you've got what is he, a cartoonist, character creator?
He's like a toy designer.
Yeah, toy
creator.
designer. Yeah. And he's kind of the quintessential, man-child, living with his parents. What is he, 35, 40 years old? Still has his favorite stuffed. They call him a teddy bear, but he looks to me almost like like a rabbit or something. But anyway, he looks a lot like Elmo. We're not going to say that, but he looks a lot like Elmo, kind of, with ears. And he still loves this thing. And so an event occurs in his life which makes him want to discard the old things and grow up and put that toy in a box. And well, let's just say Benny, the toy, doesn't take kindly to such things, and mayhem ensues. There you go. That's the basic setup.
Ensues. Stars Carl Holt. Yeah. So essentially, that's it. That's the entire movie. It's 94 minutes. I'm surprised it says the rating's not rated. Let's get a little bit bloody. I'm not going to give too much away, but if you love, I don't know, just humanity, animals, and in danger, people in danger, scared. I don't know. I've never seen any of the Child's Play. Eric Holmes, do you think people who love Child's Play will appreciate Benny Loves You, or is that not a linear kind of connection? Is that apples and oranges?
Well, it's definitely different than Child's Play. This is what's a good example? I can't think of one. Child's Play is a murderer gets killed and his spirit goes in a doll, and the doll's still trying to kill people. This one's not quite that. It's starts off, I don't want to say wholesome because that's not at all the word I'm looking for, but this one's pretty straightforward. A murderous stuffed animal going around killing people. It's actually, the story is not exactly what I thought it would be. It kind of is, but it kind of, not that like any huge twist or anything, but it went a different direction than I thought. And it's got a lot of I don't think it's as good as like Edgar Wright's movies, but it definitely has that flavor, that really kind of quick cut, quick wit sort of thing. That said, it also has its own kind of sense of humor to it. Even though the filmmaking is similar to Edgar Wright, it's the point of view of the filmmakers and the humor of the filmmakers are clearly their own, I think. But this is a fun movie, probably not for everyone. But this would be a movie that I think if you saw the trailer and you watched the trailer and you said to yourself, that looks cool, you're going to like it. If you saw the trailer and you said to yourself, not for me, probably not for you. This is one of those examples of this movie is exactly as advertised, probably a little better.
Very good. Benny loves you. Benny is a plush toy. He is a very violent plushy toy, and Benny just wants to be in the company of his guardian, his best friend Jack. Played like Bruce said, played by Carl Holt. That's it. That's all Benny wants. Just that kind of friendship. Whenever there's when a woman enters their life, Jack's life, it's not a good thing. Any kind of human that enters the home of Jack's home, not a good thing. Even Jack's parents, who presumably grew up. I mean, Benny grew up with those parents, right? They're sort of anything over 2 is a crowd for Benny. So there's basically, you can add up all those details. If you're not Jack, there's a good chance in this movie you will die. So Eric Holmes, what were you going to say?
I should also add, I don't think this is a spoiler, maybe it is, but they reference Gremlins, which right away gives a thumbs up for me. It definitely gets points for that. So good on them.
You know, if you have a very, how do I say this? If you have a very good sense of humor and you don't mind and you're not offended as much, there is a sequence where there is a kill sequence in this movie that will really piss off a lot of people. I'm sorry, folks. I'm a good man, good person. I was laughing my you-know-what off. Bruce, Eric, what did you think of this scene? We cannot mention what the scene is, but you know what I'm talking about. In my opinion, this scene is worth the price of whatever you're going to pay to see Benny Loves You. Can you guys tell me what you guys think?
I agree. I loved it. My son, who is not 12 yet, watched it with me. So take that as a bad parenting or good parenting. And we rewound that scene a couple times. Then we brought his brother in to watch that scene. So yes, let me point out. I know.
Good. Wait. Good reaction from the children.
Oh yeah,
you deadbeat dad. Okay, good.
And just to be clear, you didn't rewind that scene. You rewound it a couple times.
Yes.
Well, that's just good parenting right there.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to point out a couple things. We're talking about the tone. So it's a very goofy movie. It's a very broad movie. I think if you're not in for that comedy, like you said, that it will not work on you as comedy. Probably, it's almost like you're in a children's show, almost as far as the overboard like acting and characters. These are not going to be deep characters, but one of the tricks to this movie, I think, we were talking about Chucky. So Chucky, you've got a doll, but you want to make it creepy and you want to make it look mean, and it's vicious. And the killings in here, sometimes the special effects a lot of them are practical, and sometimes they're intentionally almost overly fake looking, like the scene we just talked about. So there's an element to it that's very fake, but that makes it less vicious because there's a level of fakeness to kind of the special effects that you can kind of go like, okay, this is just being silly, so I can enjoy it. And I got to mention the movement of Benny. Every time he moves, they may animate him so he looks like what it would look like if you took your stuffed animal, held it in your hand, and made it walk across the floor, kind of bounces across the floor. That's the way he always moves. So he always has this kind of happy, almost joyous movement when he's carrying a knife or a hatchet or a chainsaw or whatever he's carrying. He's kind of like hopping around the floor. And it was funny every time I saw it. Every time I saw it, I laughed. And last but not least, this movie, we got to the end of it, and me and my kid went, what happened to that person? Because there's a person whose fate you weren't sure about.
Yes.
And there is a mid-credit sequence on this, and I appreciated that level of detail too. There's a lot of level details, and there's other toys that are brought into this at some point, which didn't have to happen. And the fact that other toys were involved, I loved all of that as well. I think that this is, for the people who are into it, like you said, the style, this is a win.
Eric, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was going to, I was just reacting to the character that, I'll just stop talking. The more time
about that. You know what? I should have stopped. Actually, only you and Bruce should probably be talking the entire episode. I should only be 10% of this episode because I just blathered too much. Again, we mentioned.
Should be 69% of this episode.
Very, very, very good. Thank you, Eric Holmes. Yet again, that number never fails. Carl Holt, we were talking about him. The movie was finished, I guess, done shooting in 2014, 2015. And that's why there's a couple of Prince jokes in the movie. And I was thinking, why are they mentioning Prince? He passed away. Well, the movie was shot in 2014, 2015. And it took Carl all that time. I'm assuming he also edited it, but just to get it out. there. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's all the work that they put in, and like you were saying, the way Benny moves, pretty seamless and cool. I don't know. I think again, this is just sneaky, deaky, ambitious indie film that really, you said it's a win. Benny Loves You was a total win for me. I expected an escapist, forgettable fare, but I received escapist, pretty much first-rate fare. I was surprisingly, I'm surprised at how much I really enjoyed this film. Eric Holmes.
I think a good thing, like there's a scene early on. He's a man-child, pretty much, still living with his parents. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say, because it happens within the first 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
But his parents die, and his first reaction is, "I'm a homeowner now." That's the kind of dark humor. No one ever would think that. Well, I take that back. A lot of people would think that. No one would actually say that out loud. But I guess that's the kind of dark humor that this sort of movie has. Yes. Where the characters do and say things that aren't like definitely kind of cartoony and definitely written, but it sort of works with the style that this movie's going for.
Let me shoot something past you, Eric. What do you think? So we were trying to compare it to something like how that style kind of feels. To me, it almost feels, it's a totally different subject matter, but it almost feels a little more like Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, like kind of that feel.
Yeah, I would even say like kind of like the what is that one that just came out, the Jim Henson one,
the Happy Time Murders.
Yeah, Happy Time Murders. This is like the good version of the Happy Time Murders.
Yeah,
it's not a detective story, so get that out of your head. But the idea of this cute little puppet doing these horrible things, and in fact, and I still kind of like Happy Time Murders, but I wish that Happy Time Murders went for it the way that Benny Loves You went for it. And you said this came at that they made this in 2014.
2014. I'm assuming 2014 they made it, but it's like 2014, 2015.
So
in the can.
Yeah, Happy Time Murders that came out 2 years ago. So this would have been before then. So yeah. I kind of wish this would have came out then, and then Happy Time Murders could have taken a page from that and been even better. Who knows? But this is kind of the movie that Happy Time Murders promised and didn't quite deliver on. Benny Loves You, I think does. Probably won't be for everyone. But if you're if you're the type that saw the trailers for Happy Time Murders and said that's the movie I want to see, and then you saw Happy Time Murders and like, it was fine. Benny goes there for sure.
Very cool. So that is Benny Loves You. The poster has Benny with a sharp, I'm assuming, kitchen knife. He's smiling, and the tagline up right over the title says, "Don't throw him out." I think that's pretty cool because look, cute poster. Don't throw this movie out. Don't think you're gonna actually say, "Oh, this is a nice little, cute little movie, a horror little thing that I'm just gonna forget." Surprisingly good. So I guess strong recommend on my, solid recommend on mine. Everyone, Bruce, Eric,
strong.
Yep.
Okay, so that is 3 solid recommends, strong recommends for Benny Loves You, and that comes out in theaters, select theaters, May 7th, on demand May 11th, and on Blu-ray June 8th. What a one! Just even the fact that you're going to actually get the joke when we continue to annoy you, dear listener, when we mention Benny Loves You. Just join in on the fun once you see this movie. Now, speaking of the next movie and joining in on the fun, and this is a movie called Underdogs. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this. This is a movie. It's set in the future dystopian post-apocalyptic universe, and it's executive producer produced by Ridley Scott's Scott-Free Productions. So one thing you're going to know from a Scott-Free production type of project, it's going to be an interesting movie. It's going to have some visual flair. This movie does have some visual flair. And ultimately what happens is Undergods is a series of interwoven stories set in the future where, I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird wasteland where there's a little bit of a metropolis. Things are barren. There are people who beat each other up just for apparently no reason. And there's a corporate head who's trying to make it, but he's a little bit of a sociopath, but he also has a really close bond with his daughter, and then there's this neighbor from across the hall who comes into the lives of a middle-aged couple. These are kind of the stories that are interwoven. I really don't know what to make of this movie, except that by the end of the film, I'm going to start with the good parts. It actually was value added to watch because I love the way the narrative what played out as far as upending our expectations. And I like the ambition behind Undergods. My whole thing is, if you're going to cinematically throw out some kind of tone poem to the viewer, you're going to need some kind of wrap up with certain of the threads you are weaving within the story. And I feel like as much as this movie had ambition and it was a worthwhile experience, I'm going to ultimately give this a slight recommend. The fact that a lot of the anthology, the way that this anthology tied together wasn't as convincing or as resonant for me, made me downscale this movie just a little bit. So, Eric Holmes, your thoughts on this film?
I don't know nothing about this film. I saw it and it looked fantastic, and I really like the score. So that's the good stuff out of the way. This reminded me a lot of Southland Tales, and where with Southland Tales, I kind of already had trust in Richard Kelly, so I was able to stick with it and kind of I wanted to figure it out. One time I was really drunk and did figure it out, and then never again. So, but with this one, I don't know the filmmaker. I don't know their sensibilities or what they were going for. And this movie I was just lost. I didn't get it at all. I'm sure there's a point of view there. I'm sure there's it's possible that I just didn't see it in the right setting, maybe, but this went right over my head. I couldn't make heads or tails out of anything. Even to the point where you were kind of describing the story, I guess, or the setting.
Stories.
Like
Yeah.
it was just one weird thing after another, and none of it connected for me, to the point where, like, I don't know, I'd say halfway through the movie, but it was actually probably before that. I was enduring it, but I never got, for 1 second, never got on board with this movie, and couldn't put a gun to my head. I could not tell you what this movie's about.
Okay, well, fair enough. Bruce, the thing is, I remember years ago I read this comic called Astro City, and the main character would tell different stories of people who live in this metropolis. One story dealt with this cowardly anti-hero superhero. So it had him, I think he was called a turtle. So the entire one-shot story deals with his life. And then in the next issue of Astro City, you realize that Turtle is, if I recall, he's mentioned in just one panel as he gets killed. So he's the hero of his own issue, but then within the next issue, he's just a cast-off in a little panel. And this is what I think on a narrative level that Undergods does a really great job with, where they'll have characters come in and out of the frame and in the story, and you think they're actually the real quote unquote hero or the driving thrust behind it, and then they get waylaid, and then someone else takes over. So I like that construct, but saying that, is that enough of a construct to make up for some of this movie's flaws? Your take on that?
So my read on it is very similar. My read on it was basically, this is just an anthology movie. That's all it is. It's an anthology movie presented in a really obtuse fashion, because you basically, instead of the crypt keeper or whatever, you have these two kind of undergod guys that are kind of the garbage men of this like dystopian future. And they start talking about something, and then we cut to that story. And I felt like all of these stories that we watch are supposed to be kind of in this, kind of in like either an alternate reality or the upper class reality, whereas the two garbage men are basically like in the crappy, apocalyptic side of things, the side that has the factory that runs on slave labor and all that kind of stuff. Although the third story, somebody crosses back over into, I guess, richer society. But all of that being said, I didn't think any of the stories were very compelling. I mean, essentially there's three stories,
Right.
and the first story and the third story are almost two versions of the same story. They're both basically a couple who has an outsider come into their lives and mess it up. And then the middle story is just the dad and the daughter, and he's stealing something from somebody and it's going to come back to haunt him. And the other thing that I thought was really bad about the stories is that almost all of them weren't allowed to resolve on their own right. Like they would get to a point where they were going to resolve. Like the middle story, we talked about that. That was the guy, he's trying to get his daughter back and they goes to resolve it. And it just kind of peters out into the under realm. Like it never resolves.
Yeah, it never resolves, but I like the way they transitioned it. But that's just still more of a narrative trick or
element. I mean, to me, it was just a version of, like in Creepshow or something, when the thing's over, it fades back into a cell of a comic book, and now we're back to the introduction of the next story. That's all essentially it was. But what it did is it faded back to the comic book before the story was over. Like the story never ended. And that was very frustrating too, because they weren't that compelling of stories to start with, and to not even have them narratively end was even more frustrating, I thought. So, and last but not least, I thought the whole thing was kind of unsavory. Like I thought all the characters were really kind of slimy and gross. There was like a level of dislikability of everything in this movie. And not that a movie has to be likable. We just talked about a killer doll. There's something you do in the way you present the story. And this movie to me just seemed really kind of vile. Like I really didn't like it at all. It just left a bad taste in my brain. I guess is where I'm coming from.
I ended up liking this movie a little bit more than Bruce and Eric. I would give this a slight recommend. Undergods comes to theaters and digital May 7th. Look, to defend Bruce, that second story, Bruce, also, which I thought was clever, the second story is actually a story within a story. It's a dad and his telling his young daughter a story, and it goes into that story. I loved a lot of the, I love the artifice and the sheen behind Undergods. I like what they were trying to do, but the reason why it doesn't get a strong recommend is, to your point, Bruce, it doesn't really wrap up the stories. Each of those stories, you know what? Maybe if it actually wrapped up one of those stories in a really strong way, maybe that could have been the connecting thread. Instead, you get three interesting disparate stories. But yeah, Bruce, sorry.
And we probably can just stop a second, but a perfect example you're just talking about. So you have a dad telling his daughter the story, and then we go into the story, and then we come back to the dad, and the daughter's fallen asleep. And I think Eric had pointed out, like, oh, great, it's so boring that it put the character to sleep. But I would ask you, as a storyteller, what's the point of that father and daughter telling that story? There is no point at all in this movie to have that happen. Nothing happens with them again. And that's kind of what happens throughout the story. Like you keep watching the story and going like, well, what was the point of that story? I didn't know what happened to any of the characters. That was the frustration.
I would say one of two things is true. I completely believe any one of these could be true. Either one, this movie had no focus and no point of view and nothing it was trying to say. It was kind of up its own ass. Or two, and this is extremely likely because I'm not the smartest person on the planet. I didn't get it, and it just went right over my head, which is also entirely possible. I have no idea which one it was, but this movie just, you guys keep talking about like these stuff in it, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I didn't see that movie. Or Bruce picked up something, like, even though Bruce didn't like it, like Bruce picked up on a couple of things, and you guys are talking about that, and I'm like, I did not pick up on any of this. Like the whole movie went just right over my head. And like I might have said the same thing. I brought up Southland Tales. I probably would have said the same thing about that. But one time I watched Southland Tales and it all came together. And of course, never again. But that one time it came together, Southland Tales just went over my head 100%. I know this because one time I got it. But this one, I don't know. Maybe I got to watch it again, or in the right frame of mind, or I don't know what. But yeah, I didn't latch on to anything of this movie other than the fantastic cinematography and the killer soundtrack. Other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah, well, that's still a lot. Music and DP work, but Undergods, yeah, definitely not a recommend from Eric, right? No recommend.
I would say you need for me to recommend it, you have to be much smarter than I am.
Oh, come on, Bruce. No, nada, right?
No.
Nada for you. No, and for me, this is a slight recommend with the caveat of saying, look, if you want a story that wraps up in a cohesive fashion, my theory on this is the writer director. What is his name? I've got to look it up. Chino Moya, Moya. I think the director just wanted to explore the onion, where the different layers peeling behind the story, the story within the story, within the story, within the story, Bruce.
One mea culpa I
Yeah.
will give Chino Moya though is he's definitely interesting. Like
Mhm.
even though I didn't get it, I mean and usually I like weird, and he can definitely go weird. I wonder if maybe he needs to focus a little more, or again maybe I just need to get on his wavelength. But it's not I would say it's not a complete loss, even if to take a word from Bruce, even though I think this is kind of a turd. That filmmaker has something. I don't know what it is, but there's potential there for him to make something great. I don't think this is it, but who knows?
Bruce, even though it's unsavory and vile to you, do you agree with that? Little potential there? Do you see a whisper, a little bit of waft of potential behind the story, or did this just not hit you? Okay.
Yeah, maybe with just a better story. I mean, like you guys both said, I mean, the style was interesting, the acting was fine, the music was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Story. It's all story. And this
Look
one
at
that
that.
didn't work for me.
Yeah. So look, listeners, if any of you have something to say about Undergods, maybe all of us were wrong. Maybe I didn't love it as I should have loved it more. Hit us up. Tell us what you think of Undergods when it hits select cinemas and on demand on May 7th. Our final featured movie is, this is a movie that I was not looking forward to whatsoever. I was just trying to fill every single week towards around. Okay, so we're taping this around Wednesday evening. I try to say, hey, you know what, we're going to be good with one movie just as our featured episode, and then what happens is, me being an a-hole and like this director from Undergods, I have my head up my own, I end up putting so many movies on Bruce and Eric's plate. I have to apologize. Eric, you mentioned mea culpa. I have to throw a mea culpa because I throw so many movies for us to see. I just threw this because I just wanted us to. I was thinking maybe Bruce and Eric might like FriedBarry, and it's this movie set in where Bruce, Cape Town, right? And
South Africa. Yep.
South Africa. Main character is he's a deadbeat. He's a deadbeat dad, husband. He takes heroin. He's an alcoholic. He's a layabout, and due to a simple twist of fate, he gets inhabited by an alien, or maybe not. Who knows what not? For most of the movie, you're wondering whether he's inhabited by an alien or maybe it's something in his own brain. That is FriedBarry, and we follow throughout the rest of the movie his journey as either an alien or a mentally ill person, or maybe even a little bit of both. I don't know what to say about this movie, except by the end of this movie, I was surprised at how much I really loved FriedBarry. I'm completely wrong on this, but I absolutely flipped for this movie. It started off slow, and then once the alien took over, and once I got into the groove and the rhythms and the absolute insanity behind this movie, I don't know. I'm all aboard FriedBarry. Bruce Purkey, help me out here. Am I a little bit on this bandwagon? Am I off my gourd? What do you think?
I'm middle of the road on FriedBarry. I liked the energy. I liked it when it went truly bonkers, like when he gets probed or whatever is happening with the aliens. When he has a certain, let's say, a certain encounter with the woman of the night. I thought that scene was just really crazy and kind of went out over the top. But to me,
beautiful scene.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful scenes
to me,
I've ever seen in my life.
And he's a really odd looking dude. FriedBarry played by Gary Green. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, Gary Green. He's fantastic in this movie. I love that.
I'm a little on both sides with him. I think he looks really odd, and I think he does a really good job of staring and acting really strange, but I don't think he can react any other way. Like I guess my biggest problem with the movie, I say, it either needed to be crazier for me because I got kind of bored by the fact that we just kept. It was like him looking amazed because he's not supposed to know what's going on Earth, and then he'd go to another encounter with something, and then he'd look amazed again, go to another encounter, and by the time he got to the fourth or fifth encounter, I was kind of bored because nothing really happened in those encounters. They were all like just like, oh, here's a pedophile murderer. Okay, we'll be there for 10 minutes. Oh, we're gonna go to an insane asylum. All right, we'll be there for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna go to somewhere else, be there for 10 minutes. And I think this was originally a short, and I can see this working as a short, and it felt like about 5 or 6 shorts stuck together, and I only was interested in about 2 of the shorts. So I would give this a medium.
I give this every single element of this movie, every single 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I kept on going, wow. Eric, break the tie. Where do you land on this? Because this movie I thought actually went really overboard and was insane and awesome. Bruce disagreed.
First of all, the main character, he has obnoxious down to a science. he's got the crazy, but he's got that new metal crazy where it's like, I can make crazy faces and move my head weird, but at the same time, like I know guys like that. The guy before the alien takes over. Sure. And I know people like that, and those people really bug the shit out of me. So good on him on that, because it bugged the shit out of me, but in the way I think that character's supposed to, because he's before the alien takes over, he's not a good person. This movie kept losing me and then pulling me back in, where Undergods kept pushing me away, and I kept trying to get in, and it just kept pushing me away. Like this one repulses me, but then it pulls me back in, and then pushes me out a bit. And so I'm kind of I don't know. There's like stuff that I hated about this, and I was just completely annoyed by. But then there was other times where I'm just like, well, let's stick this one out and see where it goes. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards loving it, but this one was weird. And then to Bruce's point, I kept getting reminded of Starman. And Starman's a good movie, but Jeff Bridges' performance as a alien trying to act human was extremely obnoxious, and this one kind of does that times 10. But that's kind of the style it's going for, especially when the Barry, but when he goes to the spaceship, and it gets really unsettling, like with the sound design and the quick flashes and everything. I'm just like, oh. And so definitely repulsed by that. Not like oh gross, but just kind of just very unsettling. And then it becomes interesting, and then I pull back in, and then it starts getting unsettling again. Don't do a bunch of crack before watching this.
Or LSD.
Fuck no. Yeah, I tell you, you got to watch this one stone sober, because you don't need nothing.
Or something that'll bring you down, like something that'll like
this movie. I'm like really hot and cold on as I'm watching it, and for that reason, I would give this a recommend, just because it's such it's such an odd movie and such an odd experience that you can't. And also, and again, to compare it to Undergods, where Undergods seems unfocused, this one knows exactly what it's going for. It's crazy. It's definitely weird at times, but I get the sense that it's doing things on purpose.
It has flashes of greatness for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, I definitely would say there are there. For Greg, it was pretty much.
I love
great.
this. I'm all for this.
And and the ending was fantastic. I love the ending of this one.
Yeah, good, very good ending. It's written and directed by Ryan Kruger.
I like that too. No, I was just thinking of what happens with his. I can't even say, but there's something that happens as a result of something he did that's pretty amazing.
What wasn't the final title like? You got like a Spike Lee joint. Wasn't this called a Ryan Kruger thing?
Yeah, it said that at the beginning too. It said a Ryan Kruger thing. This guy is definitely his own wavelength for sure.
Yeah. I really love this movie, and written and directed by Ryan Kruger. Strong recommend from me. Eric Holmes, slight recommend for you, just like
I would say this is a strong recommend, just because it kind of goes for it. And even though everything didn't work for me, the things that didn't work for me, I don't think were supposed to work for me. Like for instance, you get a character that's so repulsive, you're like, I hate that character. That's not a fault of the movie or the character. The character is supposed to be dislikable. So I think the things that I was repulsed by was by design, and the things that drew me in and I felt interesting was also by design. So I would give this movie high marks, even though I was kind of hot and cold on it. I think that was the movie playing me as opposed to me not liking the movie.
And fair enough, Bruce Purkey, even though this movie had flaws for you, you give this a medium recommend, or
I get slight or medium recommend. I think the energy and the creativity is enough, and that some people will definitely be right with you and love that this will be right up their vibe. And I would say, to me, it was just like, I wanted it to be leading somewhere, as opposed to being kind of like another new thing, just a different thing every time, but it wasn't ever building towards anything really much for me. And that was my take back from it. So
did you guys get any sort of I know we just did the director spotlight on him, but did you get any sort of Leo Carax kind of energy from this?
Maybe.
Like I was thinking like Leo Carax and like Nicholas Winding Refn, or maybe
meets Mandy, meets
if it was like what, Mr. Mayrd or whatever, like if it was his whole movie, that's kind of what this is a little bit like.
Yeah. And also, listeners, if any of you are really, look, I'm middle-aged. Unlike Bruce, I don't have kids. I've always wanted to become a family man one of these days. And there's a really romantic moment in the middle of FriedBarry, which makes you really want to, I don't know, maybe set up stakes and have a child. So there's a very sublime moment, folks. I'm half jest with that, but if you've ever thought about having a kid, see FriedBarry.
That was such a high point in the movie. If it would have just flown with that, I would have gone so much farther with this movie.
It might go without saying, but just in case it's not, don't eat while watching this movie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I will give another good point to this. There's a little intro where they have this kind of old fashioned, like telling you why it's rated 18 plus.
Yeah.
And then there's an intermission.
Yes, that intermission. Well, that's awesome.
So yes. I love all that stuff too. So, I mean, there's definitely some really good stuff. Even if you're like me and you're kind of middle of the road on it, I think there's enough here that's worth watching.
Yes. Okay. And Ryan Kruger, if you are listening to this podcast, writer, director Ryan Kruger, strong recommend, please make a sequel. I already have the name of your sequel. It's going to be called Deep Fried Berry. Please make that a reality. I want to see this movie happen. And your lead actor, Gary Green, fantastic in the movie. Anyways,
I want to see him do a kind of a classic British style chamber version of this, and then call it Berry Over Easy. I want to see that one.
Who's the guy in the Holy Motors?
Dennis Levant.
Yeah.
Oh, Dennis Levant.
Him and the guy in this Green. I'm sorry, I suck at names.
Gary Green. Yeah, no.
Gary Green.
Yeah, I believe.
I want to see a road trip comedy with those two.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, The Road to Zanzibar, starring Gary.
Oh, Fried Green.
Fried
Green. I'm going to make this the title somehow. I don't know how, but
Fried Green Tornadoes.
I got one. Fried Green Barry Loves You. So that comes out. By the way, FriedBarry comes out on May 7th exclusively on Bruce Purkey's #1 streaming choice, right? Shudder.
Yeah, that I get no money for. Get me some damn money.
Shudder, get Bruce Purkey some darn money. Okay, so that's it. We're done with our featured reviews. What are we gonna do next? We're gonna eventually get to Bruce's, recommendation and his what's in the box. But first, Eric, what is your recommendation this week? What do you have for us for the listeners?
Well, I saw a movie from 2006 written by Nicholas Kazan and directed by Courtney Hunt, starring Renee Zellweger, Keanu Reeves, and Jim Belushi, and it's called The Whole Truth. This is it basically opens up. Keanu Reeves does a lot of voiceover in this, and he's Keanu Reeves is a attorney, and he's He's the attorney for his friend's son who killed his dad. And his son doesn't talk to him. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but Keanu Reeves should have just pled down as much as he could, because his son's not talking and he can't, my brain sucks, but he can't be the lawyer for him, because he didn't know anything. And all he knows is, when your client doesn't talk to you, how can you defend them? But for some reason he's going to. This movie takes place other than the odd flashback, it mostly takes place in a courtroom. But this isn't really a courtroom drama. This is a mystery, because you don't have, like, right off the bat, Keanu Reeves says his dad's dead and he said he did it and I gotta defend him. So that's what you know right off the bat. But as the trial proceeds, you start finding out things, and it plays more like a mystery. I'm not a lawyer. I would imagine if any lawyer watched this movie, they would just be pulling their hair out, because there's a couple things in this. They're like, there's 0% chance that would happen in a courtroom. What kind of lawyer is he? Why did call objection? What the fuck is going on? So as a courtroom drama, this movie fails. But as a mystery, like an unfolding mystery that just happens to be set in a courtroom, I think this is pretty good. This is kind of like it feels kind of pulp to me.
That's a good thing. That can be a very good thing.
Oh yeah, and it is. What was that? Stowaway. This is a how Stowaway, like, for a science movie, like the science of it doesn't make sense, but emotionally, I think it kind of works. Yeah. This kind of does the same thing as a realistic depiction of how courts and lawyers and stuff work. This is a complete failure, but as a mystery, I'm intrigued. And then once it gets to the end, there's a bunch of reveals. Some may say too many. I think just the perfect amount. Okay. This one worked for me. This one worked for me a lot, and I will watch this movie again for sure. Probably not for everyone. I think it might get a little too silly, and especially
underrated, because this movie is considered a Keanu Reeves, not a movie of Keanu Reeves that you see. So in that sense, do you think it's overlooked because of you're saying you this movie?
I honestly didn't even know about this. I just went on Netflix and saw that, hey, courtroom drama, cool, I'll watch it. And then at first I started getting pissed off. It's like, this is stupid. But then once I let that go, I kind of just let the mystery portion of it wash over me. So again, this is not a good courtroom drama, but it's a pretty good kind of pulpy mystery kind of movie.
Movies directed by Courtney Hunt. She also directed and became popular for her work in that movie. I think it's 2009 movie, Frozen River. This movie is released in 2016. The screenwriter is Nicholas Kazan. And like you mentioned, Eric Holmes, he actually wanted to go under a different pseudonym. I don't know why. Yeah. But Nicholas Kazan, to tease for next week, we're going to have friend of the show and just our friend, Angie Clark. She recently purchased the movie Wild River from Entertainment, and Eric Holmes is having Angie Clark on, and all three of us will also watch Wild River. By the way, that movie is directed by Elia Kazan being the father of the screenwriter of this movie, Nicholas Kazan. So
I wonder, because I did see that they went under a pseudonym, and that kind of makes sense, because the things that don't make sense as far, and again, not a lawyer, but the stuff that stood out to me, if it stood out to me, I'm sure it would just be like a fucking, a giant flashing light to actual lawyers. I'm wondering if there were kind of rewrites, or maybe stuff that maybe they, or like that wouldn't happen in a courtroom, and they're like, I don't care, we're doing it anyway. Or maybe it's something else. I couldn't really find anything about why they decided to change the name. Regardless of that, I mean, that for me, this is kind of a American History X sort of situation. That was it. Danny K. Do I get that name right?
Yeah, Tony K. I believe his name is Tony K. Yeah,
I always forget his first name because I suck at life. But Tony K. Just completely dismissed American History X turned out to be a good movie, even though it wasn't the movie he wanted to make. And maybe that's the same for the writer. Wasn't the movie they wrote, but it turned out to be a pretty decent mystery, regardless of that. Probably not for everyone, but I give it a shot. It's pretty sweet.
Sounds good. That is The Whole Truth, headlined by Keanu Reeves, co-starring Renee Zellweger. Okay, cool. That is, you saw that on, and it's currently streaming on Netflix. Bruce, before we get to you, just a quick recommendation for me. I just got this. The Mauritanian. Speaking of courtroom dramas, stars Jodie Foster, Tahar Rahim, and Shailene Woodley, and Benedict Cumberbatch. Directed by Kevin McDonald. He directed The Eagle, How I Live Now. What else? Black Sea. I believe Last King of Scotland as well, but just interviewed him today. I did not see The Mauritanian until recently because I thought this was going to be a by the numbers slog of a film. It's a true story of Mamadou, I'm mispronouncing his middle name, Ouid Slahi's memoir, Guantanamo Diary. This is the true story of Slahi's fight for freedom after being imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay for, I believe, 14 years. So I thought this was just, if it's based on a true story, filled with good intentions, I thought it was, again, going to be a by the numbers kind of experience. Excellent. I think it's 2 hours and 9 minutes. Excellent movie. Really well done performances. Jodie Foster, Shailene Woodley, Benedict Cumberbatch, all very good in this movie, but the lead is very good. Tahar Rahim, just see this movie because of that. And Mamadou is just a very interesting person. Just a very good man. He's a very good man. Can you imagine being imprisoned in Cuba? No charge on you, 14 years. And when you see from this movie that you see what kind of person he is, he's not a man who is filled with bile and hatred. I would be the worst. I would be tons of worse for wear. But what's cool about this movie is you learn about the story, you learn about Guantanamo Bay, but you really learn about this man's life and the honor and integrity and the light that still shines within him. So this was a surprise film for me. And what's cool about the Blu-ray and DVD, which I just did receive, comes with a digital code, has 4 minutes worth of deleted scenes, a featurette on the making of the movie, and also an alternate opening. So yeah. And also, by the way, for our Lumet little tease, I'm also going to put some Kevin McDonald sound in our upcoming episode, because I asked him about Sidney Lumet and he talked about Sidney Lumet very quickly. So just a little bit of Kevin McDonald audio will be also featured.
Did he hate him? What do you think of that Sidney Lumet guy? No, sir, I do not like Sidney.
Sidney, I don't like Sidney Lumet whatsoever. But hey, the cool thing about it is he also gives a DVD Blu-ray pick as well. This movie called The Battle of Algiers. So check out our feed for our Kevin McDonald interview on Find Your Film. They're going to see a lot more of that stuff. Most importantly, The Mauritanian comes out Blu-ray DVD on May 11th. Worth a watch. I was surprised at how good this movie is. Bruce Purkey, your recommendation of the week.
Well, mine is almost opposite of everything we've done. It's just a crowd-pleasing family movie. It's on Netflix, The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's not directed by the Lord and what's his name that do like Lego Movie and those.
Lord Miller.
Yeah, Lord Miller. Thank you. It's not directed by Lord Miller, but they have a big influence on this production. And then it's directed by Mike Rianda, who was involved in Gravity Falls, which I also loved a lot. If you ever saw Gravity Falls, this is just a super fun family cartoon. The basic idea is this: you've got this family of misfits. At the beginning of the movie is family of misfits. They all are just basically weirdos in one way or another, but in the best kinds of ways. And it starts with them and the whole world is being attacked by robots. And then there's a flashback and you see them a few days earlier and how they get on the road. So basically their daughter is going to go off to college. The daughter has a kind of strained relationship with the dad. So the dad's solution to fix that strained relationship is to have a road trip from their house all the way to California to where she's going to go to college. So it's a road trip movie. And as they're on the road, they don't know, but the world is basically being taken over by every bit of machinery in the world. The AI of the world is taking over. Katie, the main character, is played by Abby Jacobson. Rick, the dad, is Danny McBride. The mom is Maya Rudolph. and it goes down. Eric Andre's in this, Olivia Colman. I mean, it's star-studded cast. But why is this movie so much fun? So first of all, if you like Lego Movie, you like that kind of style. If you liked Into the Spider-Verse, I think you'll enjoy the creative energy of this movie. It is a movie that loves movies. The daughter is going to film school. So she's been spending years making parodies with her pug dog. She's been making all these parody movies. And you get to see bits and pieces of the parody movies. And they reference Kubrick. They reference Hal Ashby. They reference Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This movie loves movies. So there's a ton of fun inside stuff if you love movies. And even if you don't, it's creative and energetic and just great fun. This is on Netflix. You can't go wrong with this. Now, obviously, if you're not into the kind of the family style movies and stuff, it might not be for you. But even if you're not, you might give it a try. I can't imagine you would hate it. You might just like it. But if you already are looking for value-added family movie, this is steps ahead of a lot.
Okay, so that is a strong recommend for you, Bruce.
Yeah,
and I guess, Eric, are you going to see that movie soon? You're going to probably see that movie as well.
I thought Spider-Verse was okay, and I didn't like Lego Movie was fine. Like I don't hate their movies. I don't get the I see everyone just losing their mind over Lord and Miller movies, and then I see them and I'm like, I don't get it. Like they're fine, but I don't go head over heels over their movies.
Give this 15 or 20 minutes since it's not directed by them.
Yeah.
Give it 15 or 20 minutes. And if you're not in at that point, you probably won't be.
Well, the thing is, I'll probably like it. But with Spider-Verse is a perfect example. Everyone's like, oh my God, this movie's mind-blowing. I watch and go, yeah, that was pretty good.
Well, and this is definitely one of those things like, I mean, I got kids. So if you have kids and you want to watch a movie that's not going to make you stab your eyes out.
I will say that to Spider-Verse's credit, with most of the bullshit they watch, because they're right outside the door, most of that stuff that they watch, I would definitely pick Spider-Verse over that, but I wouldn't pick Spider-Verse over like most things.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay, so that is, I think I'm going to watch that movie. I'm going to give The Mitchells versus The Machines a shot. But by the way, we've stacked the deck for next week. We have so many things to watch for next week. Bruce Purkey, why don't you finish this show up with your What's in the Box pick?
Yes, so this is a movie that I picked up the DVD used, I don't know, 2 months ago, knowing that it was in the box.
Yeah.
So it finally came up and I was like, cool. I have it sitting on the shelf. I don't have to rent this. Tsotsi, I can never say it.
2005, starring Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman in South Africa.
Yeah, directed by Sidney Pollock. Yeah.
This is directed by Gavin Hood from 2005. Now, if you don't have the DVD or the Blu-ray, it is on Paramount Plus and Hoopla, and you can rent it, obviously, for a few dollars. So a really interesting movie. And I think you've both seen it, right?
No, I still haven't seen it. Everyone tells me to see this movie, and I love Gavin Hood movies, especially Ender's Game and X-Men Origins Wolverine. I will have to stress those two movies. Sorry, guys.
Well, I guess Eric can hop in on this one. So basic concept is it starts out so it's in, I think, Johannesburg, if I remember correctly. Our main character, Tootsie, I'll just say Tootsie from now on, just to give you a totally messed up vision in your brain. Played by, oh God, it's even worse than the actual names. Presley Chwenayange. He is like the leader. I did, doesn't I? He's like the leader of like a small gang. So you see him, and they're like in kind of like in the I don't know what they call it. It used to be the townships. So it's kind of the version of that, like right at the outskirts of the suburbs. So you see him kind of walking through these streets. Obviously, not a lot of money there, pretty low poverty. He walks out with his 3 friends, kind of ready to go out for whatever activities they're going to get up to. And he walks by, obviously, the bigger gang guy that's in that area who's a little more powerful, and they're kind of looking at him, and he's just still kind of has a swagger like, hey, I'm the up and coming dude. Watch me go. And very quickly, you see them at a train station, and they're casing out looking for a mark. You can tell they're looking for somebody to rob. They get their sights on a guy who's just parting from a woman that he's either dating or friends with or whatever. But while he's doing it, he shows that he has a little cash on him. So they're like, okay, that's the guy. They go onto the train. They slowly walk down towards the guy until all of a sudden they're surrounding him. The guy doesn't even notice until it's too late. They're surrounding him. They're looking at him and basically going to try to grab the thing from him. He stares back at them, and one of the gang members, not Tsotsi, but one of the gang members stabs the guy to death. Really, in a really excruciating scene where he basically holds up a ice pick, and you don't know what's going to happen, and he just slowly stabs the guy like in the heart and kills him almost silently while they're standing on the train, and then they all leave. And that is kind of the kickoff to a lot of the events in this, because you very quickly get the idea that even though they might be seasoned criminals, they don't seem to be very seasoned killers, because one of the members of his gang is very shaken by what happened, and it causes some events to occur that change all their lives. And I don't know, should I say, Eric, like what the main event is that happens early on, or should I leave that out?
You kind of have to, unless they're just going to stop there, because that's kind of the whole point of so the part that you mentioned, that's the part that just kind of lets you know who the characters are, like what we're dealing with. But the actual story is the thing that you're trying to talk around. I don't know that you can, and it's not really a spoiler, I don't think. Yeah, it's just kind of, it'd be like saying the spoiler of Endgame is Captain America's in it. You know, that's not a spoiler. That's just what it's about.
In the aftermath of that, there is some strife among the gang, and Tsotsi goes off on his own, kind of in anger and kind of frustration, and you're not sure what he's doing, but he kind of goes off and he walks across this kind of desolated area that they live in to the suburbs. And he just happens to be standing out of a side of a house when a woman pulls up outside, and they have a gated house. They're like much richer, obviously. They have a gated door, and she's trying to get the gate open, trying to get them to open the gate. And while she's doing it, he just walks out of the rain with a gun and gets in her car. And as he's starting to drive away, she tries to stop him, and he shoots her. She falls to the ground. He drives away, and when he finally stops on the side of the road, he discovers there's a baby in the back seat, like a very, very small baby. And that is what really kicks off the story, is he has this baby and like what's going to happen. And it is a very, very interesting movie. And I don't really want to say how it rolls out, but I mean, that should be enough right there. That is a situation that is just like classic dramatic. How's this going to work out? You've got this obviously relatively ruthless gang leader from all appearances, and now he's got this child, and what's going to happen? How's he going to deal with that?
Sounds like kind of a surprising movie through and through. The movie, does it surprise you?
I think it does, and it's very focused. It really sticks with his character. It does touch back with the family that the baby's missing from, because obviously this baby now is out there somewhere. No one knows where it is. They just basically got carjacked. And it deals with the rest of his gang, and kind of you get to find out more like how he got to where he is. And the main character, the actor, is really, really good, because he does, and I want to get Eric's take on this too, but I feel like what's really interesting about how he performs this role is he is doing things that are obviously really easy to hate his character, but he acts with such a level of kind of like fear and vulnerability within also being tough. He kind of fluctuates, that you really get a feel that his character is very conflicted and torn, like all the way through. And that's what I think makes it more interesting than just either being very sentimental or very tough. It's really more human than that. It's really good.
As far as setting him up to be a dickhead, does it quite well. In fact, the first time he leaves the baby alone and comes back, and then you see the baby just like ants crawling all over the baby. It's like, oh God, what a fucking! It's hard to bring a character back from that, but it kind of does. And the whole time I'm like, why are you keeping the baby? Get rid of it. You want to get rid of the baby. You need to get rid of the baby. Like, the baby does not need to be with you. That kind of unfolds. The reason why he keeps the baby kind of unfolds in itself. And this is what Gavin Hood's in his movies that follow. I think this is probably the one that has like the most humanity in it, just an emotional journey, but it also has moments of suspense, which he's really good at, and which he really takes to the next level in his movies after this. And I believe this is his first movie, at least his first feature length one. And yeah, this is just a fantastic first movie.
And I wanted to point out, because you're saying it too, I wanted to point out, because the way I was describing it, it makes it sound like it might just be kind of a real, like a, emotional drama, which it definitely has aspects of that. But like Eric is saying, there's a couple sequences in the last third of this movie that are very tense, very, very tense. And you will not be knowing which way it's going to go. And you will be very worried for characters in that situation. All the characters in that situation. So in that aspect, it's really, really good.
Well, that also, this movie, what it does well is it sets up the characters well enough. I mean, we joke about character development in Justice League, but this actually has character development in that it sets up a scene and you can almost kind of play out in your head what the scene's going to be, because you know how these characters react to certain things. And then something happens and you're like, oh fuck, oh god, this is gonna happen. And then someone does something that kind of surprises you. It's like, oh,
And it's almost comparable to something like some of the scenes in, like, say, Goodfellas or something, where by the time you get towards the end of Goodfellas, you know what Joe Pesci's character is like versus, the other characters. So when you have those characters together in a certain situation, you're like, oh shit, this guy's going to do this. This guy's stuck between them. So you have that dynamic in this that's very tense and very, very rich. It's really good, I think.
Okay, so that is Tsotsi, released in 2005, directed by Gavin Hood. All kidding aside, I am a huge fan of X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and Ender's Game. And in fairness to Eric Holmes, he's often mentioned how much he really enjoyed Eye in the Sky, directed by Gavin Hood in 2015, and especially the 2019 release, Official Secret, starring Keira Knightley. These are just several of the movies that Gavin Hood has also directed. In 2007, he directed the film Rendition. Hood's next film, as far as it's in pre-production or maybe it's already in post, is this movie called The Test, and it stars John Boyega in, quote, a contained thriller about a behavioral psychologist and an immigrant dealing with a terrorist group in a, quote, authoritarian near future. That sounds like a tense movie. Yes, Eric Holmes, double thumbs up. Well, John Boyega in a Gavin Hood movie. That sounds like,
yeah,
Purkey. Yeah, sounds like a
Can we just give John Boyega like an Oscar like now, because he's going to get one the next like 5 years, because he's fucking knocking it out of the park.
But probably not, because he was pretty great in Detroit, and that for some reason that is beyond me. I believe people shit on Detroit when it came out, and since I brought it up, let's talk about how great Detroit is. It's fantastic. Watch it.
So good. Wow. And he was amazing in Small Axe, Red, White, and Blue this year, which a lot of people didn't see. He was amazing. He that was pretty much a whole movie. It was like a 90-minute movie almost, and he starred in it. It was amazing.
So and he played Finn Wolfhard in Star Trek movies, so that was pretty good too.
And don't forget Attack the Block.
Attack the Block. So basically, more leading roles for John Boyega. That leading roles, right? Okay, cool. That is the shake. That is the shake of Bruce Purkey's What's in the Box? What's in the bleeping box?
Bruce, what's in the box?
And remember, before you open what's in the box, just remember, Benny loves you.
Benny loves you.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Bruce,
Ta-da!
Benny loves you. So quick, tell us what's in the box.
If you don't tell us what's in the box, you're going to be thrown in that compactor.
Okay, calm down.
Undergods.
I think I don't remember if this is the one, but I think one of these, I think Greg might have to watch too. I don't know if this is the one. This is suggested by Brian O'Connell, and it is Rudderless.
Oh, yes, I have to say. Brian O'Connell, thank you so much, sir.
William H. Macy directed.
Anton Yelchin. By the way, do you guys know anything about Rudderless? Eric Holmes?
Just what you just said, basically.
That's it? Okay. Yeah. There's something very interesting. I'm so glad that Brian O'Connell, thank you so much for just being a member of our Cinematics Facebook group since the get-go. And he's been trying to get me to see this movie for a long time. I do know what this movie is about, so I know all the spoiler stuff behind this movie. That said, Eric, you like Anton Yelchin? Do you like Anton Yelchin?
I do. I will watch this.
Oh, Bruce Purkey, you like Anton Yelchin?
Love Anton.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to definitely try to watch Rudderless next week. It's going to be an interesting conversation towards the end of our Finder. We are packed next week. Elia Kazan, Wild River. We have, what else do we have? Oh, we have thank you, Brian O'Connell, by the way. We have The Killing of Two Lovers. The Killing of Two
Yes.
Lovers. Eric Holmes, without saying too much so far. What do you think? You're going to finish this right after we record.
That beginning is dynamite, and I cannot wait to see how it turns out.
It's The Killing of Two Lovers. I hear it's a light, fluffy, romantic comedy that puts a smile on your face. Is that correct, Eric Holmes? Yes? No?
It hasn't turned that way so far, but we'll check out the rest of it and see where it turns. But so far, not even close.
Okay.
The last third is animated, and it's got like.
We're also going to be doing a Mads Mikkelsen movie. I think it's called like Riders of Justice or something like that. And then the last movie we're going to review next week is this movie whose name I can't pronounce. Bruce, can you say what is the name of that movie that we're going to do? It's a horror thriller kind of thing.
Jim.
The Jim.
It's called Jim.
The Jim.
Yeah, it could be Jim.
We're gonna be working out of the gym.
It could be
the Arnold Schwarzenegger story.
Yes, it could be.
My name's Jim. The D is silent.
Or it could be Jin, which is DJINN, the Jin. Okay, and then also that Mads movie is called Riders of Justice. A lot of movies to cover. Last thing I wanted to just mention, I've decided for all of our curating, which I haven't done yet because Claire, my lovely niece Claire, she's on her summer break starting in June. So I'm going to do I've started to actually put everything all in one. Bruce Purkey talks about what's in the box. I've decided to put everything in my proverbial box on deepestdream.com. I'm going to start curating all of our treasure trove of Find Your Film stuff on that site. Go to deepestdream.com for that stuff. And then Eric Holmes mentioned a spoiler episode regarding Sidney Lumet. When we do The Pawnbroker and Night Falls on Manhattan, we'll have a separate mini episode that is not going to be part of the feed. You're going to have to go to the site to actually check out our 20-minute conversation, spoiler-driven conversation on both movies. Bruce Purkey, any final thoughts before we go?
If you haven't heard enough of me, next week I will make a small guest vocal appearance on Middle Class Film Class as they discuss Return of the Living Dead.
Okay. By the way, those guys at Middle Class Film Class, Peter Beta, I really love that podcast. I don't like to listen to them, but you know why? Because their sound mixing is way better than I can ever imagine. I don't know. They probably use a Rodecaster, or they're in person, not like us. We're so far away, like that song goes. Can we say that if whatever we had to say about Undergods, if you are a Frank Sinatra fan, Bruce, can we?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Bruce pointed out to me, so I'll let him say that. But it's
Would you say that Undergods might want to rule the world?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah.
Wait, so if you have a choice, Bruce, Undergods or Tesla, if you had to watch that one more time, what do you say?
I would watch Undergods 5 more times than watch Tesla once more.
Eric Holmes.
Yeah, that's it. Same. With Undergods, I feel that I missed something. With Tesla, I got it. It just wasn't good.
I wished I'd missed something with Tesla.
Well, welcome to your life, Eric Holmes. You're going to close out the show. What do you have to say about yourself and find your film? Anything? Say it.
Hit me up at hamslime@gmail.com. Want to get everyone's names on things. We'll probably do another Entertainmart gift card giveaway, and might have something in store for next year for regarding the whole Cinematics family. So there'll be more on that. We got plenty of time, but we're going to be working on some stuff.
We're going to be definitely working on some stuff. Hit us up. Hit up me, Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey, in our various socials. And thank you guys so much for listening to Find Your Film. We're going to be back next week for The Killing of Two Lovers and, of course, that wonderful Sidney Lumet director spotlight. Take care, everyone.